You're staring at your screen.
Right.
Your bank account is frozen. Maybe you're locked out of your flight. And the little chat window on the app just cheerfully says, I understand your frustration. Here's an article on how to reset your password.
Oh, yeah. The classic unhelpful help.
Right. You aren't talking to a human who can actually sense your panic.
Yeah.
But you also aren't talking to an old-school error code that just tells you the system is down. You're trapped in this weird, uncanny valley of modern customer service.
It really is an uncanny valley.
It's that very first point of contact,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the automated assistant, the chatbot, whatever voice AI they use. And we barely even register it anymore. It's just this mandatory toll booth you have to pass through to get any kind of help.
It's the absolute front door of almost every single business we interact with today. We kind of accept it as the premise now.
Which brings us to the mission for today's deep dive. We are going to explore a very specific observation record from Tommy Yoshida, or Tsutomu Yoshida, who has been documenting this exact phenomenon.
Yes, his work is fascinating.
It really is. And I need to be really clear up front about what we are doing here today. Because this space, right now, isn't here to evaluate AI.
Right.
We are not here to teach you how to use it, and we are certainly not here to force some neat, tidy conclusion about whether it's ultimately good or bad.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a definitive verdict or a hot take on the future of artificial intelligence, that's just not what this observation is about.
Exactly.
Yoshida's focus is really rooted in the financial sector, looking at the completely mundane, everyday front lines where these systems are deployed.
So instead of judging it, we are basically embracing the margins today.
Yeah.
We are intentionally leaving unfinished thoughts, pending questions, and open-ended ideas exactly as they are.
Which is hard to do sometimes.
It is. But we have to recognize that we are in a transitional period right now. Because of that, there's going to be this slight discomfort or unnatural feeling as we discuss the intersection of language and technology today.
A definite friction.
Yeah, and we are deliberately leaning into that discomfort as part of the observation. We just want to sit with it.
And Yoshida is really observing the human experience of that exact moment. I mean, we interact with these systems constantly, and at first glance, you have to admit the tech has gotten undeniably impressive.
Oh, for sure. It's fast.
Right. The overwhelming initial impression of a modern customer service AI is incredible speed. You input a question, and there is zero wait time. The response is instantaneous.
The grammar is perfect, too.
Exactly. Perfect grammar. The formatting is always neat. It never gets tired, it never has a bad day, and it doesn't get frustrated if you take, like, 20 minutes to reply.
But the discomfort that Yoshida is tracking, it starts to creep in when you actually try to solve a complex problem. Like the AI handles the easy stuff flawlessly.
Checking a balance, tracking a package.
Right. But the second your situation gets a little messy or, you know, shifts slightly outside the standard conditions that the AI expects, the interaction just quietly derails.
Quietly is the key word there.
Yeah. And what's wild to me is that it doesn't crash. It doesn't just freeze and give you a giant red error message.
And this is the core of the illusion. Traditional software hits a wall and gives you like an error 404 or says invalid input. But the AI systems we are talking about now, particularly large language models, they aren't structured like traditional code.
They're doing something totally different.
Completely different. They don't evaluate the fundamental truth or the logic of your specific bank account issue. They are, at their core, just incredibly sophisticated probabilistic engines.
Probabilistic engine.
Yeah, they are basically giant autocomplete machines designed to just predict the most likely next word in a sequence based on vast amounts of training data.
Okay, let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around this. Because it's just predicting words, it doesn't actually know it can't solve my problem.
Right.
It just knows what a helpful sounding response looks like.
You've hit the nail on the head. It doesn't know it's wrong. It just knows what a correct sounding apology or a plausible solution is supposed to look like.
Wow.
So instead of giving you an error message, it returns what Yoshida describes as a plausible answer. It's a response that isn't exactly broken, and it makes complete grammatical sense in a vacuum, but it fundamentally does not align with your actual situation.
It is maddening. I mean, you are staring at these perfectly formatted bullet points that technically answer the literal words you typed, but are completely oblivious to your actual context.
Exactly.
If you say, my card was declined, but I have funds, it might reply with a beautifully written paragraph on how to check your balance.
Which doesn't help you at all.
Not at all. And you can't even get mad at it because it technically gave you an answer, but you were still standing there with a blocked card.
And Yoshida points out how this creates a really unique type of friction. When an interaction with a human fails, you usually know why.
Like they didn't listen to you.
Right, they didn't listen, or they lacked the authority to fix it, or they misunderstood a specific detail. But with these AI systems, it becomes incredibly difficult to pinpoint where the disconnect actually happened.
Because it's so smooth.
Yes. The interaction derails in this totally frictionless, quiet way. It's not actual problem solving, it's a simulation of problem solving.
So, if the grammar is flawless and the words make sense, why am I still furious staring at my phone? I mean, the words arrive beautifully, but the underlying problem isn't being solved at all.
Which brings us to the missing ingredient in all of this.
Right. And Yoshida wrote these observations from a Japanese context, which is super important here. Looking at the cultural nuances of customer support in Japan highlights exactly why these plausible answers feel so incredibly hollow.
Because in a Japanese context, traditional customer support places a massive emphasis on attentiveness, on subtlety, and on having a deep contextual understanding of the customer's situation.
It's not just about the transaction.
No, it's about far more than just executing a transaction. There's a strong expectation of emotional reception.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second here, because I want you to think about your own life for a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
If I am standing in line at the grocery store, right, and my card gets blocked, I honestly don't care if the chatbot empathizes with my embarrassment.
Fair point.
I just want the block lifted immediately.
Yeah.
So isn't raw efficiency the ultimate goal? Does emotional reception really matter if the machine is just incredibly fast?
Well, efficiency is definitely crucial, but Yoshida observes that human understanding acts as a functional safety net. It's not just some warm and fuzzy feeling.
What do you mean by functional safety net?
When you explain your problem to a human representative, even if they don't have the immediate answer right away, something vital happens. They receive the burden of your problem.
Oh, I see.
They hear the stress in your voice, they validate the urgency, and you get to cognitively check that stress off your list because you trust they're going to navigate the system to fix it for you.
You literally hand the problem over to them. You aren't carrying it alone anymore.
Exactly. But AI is a void. It
Yeah.
completely lacks that capacity for emotional reception. So when it spits back a plausible but slightly off answer, that trust evaporates instantly.
Because it didn't really get it.
Right. You realize that if your exact wording isn't perfectly aligned with its parameters, the system has absolutely no idea what you actually want. The speed is there, sure, but without the capacity to receive the burden, you just feel entirely isolated in solving your own problem.
You are basically throwing your issue into an empty room and just getting a task list back.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
It's operational stability, but complete emotional isolation. And what makes that isolation so exhausting, I think, is that the rules of the room keep changing.
Oh, absolutely.
We use the word chatbot like it's a monolith, like they're all the same. But Yoshida observes this unpredictable roulette, depending entirely on who built the AI you happen to be talking to on any given day.
Yeah, we lump all these interfaces under a single label, but their behavior in the real world varies wildly.
It's like jumping into different rental cars at the airport.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Right. You get in, and technically it's a car. It's got a steering wheel, pedals, a dashboard. But in one car, you tap the brakes, and you get whiplash.
That's right. Highly sensitive.
And then in another car, you have to press the pedal all the way to the floor just to slow down. The interface looks identical, but it responds completely differently to the exact same input.
And let's look under the hood of those rental cars, because the engines powering them are fundamentally different. Yoshida points out the extreme spectrum of these bots.
So what's on one end of the spectrum?
On one end, you have companies that built their bots on rigid decision trees. These operate on strict, hard-coded rules, like if the user types X, output script Y.
Very robotic.
Very. If you deviate even slightly from the specific keywords it expects, the whole interaction derails. It just stubbornly loops the same unhelpful answer over and over.
And on the other side?
On the other side, a company might connect their bot to an open-ended neural network that interprets semantics. It actually manages to grasp the user's intent even beyond their exact wording.
So it's more flexible.
Right, you can type something clumsy or poorly phrased, and it somehow connects the dots and figures out what you mean.
So you're staring at the exact same little chat box on your screen, but you have absolutely no idea what kind of machinery you are actually operating.
None at all.
You don't know the rules of engagement, until you are already mid-conversation, desperately trying to reverse engineer the bot's capabilities. Are you talking to an entity that understands intent, or an entity that only understands literal syntax?
And Yoshida highlights this as a profound source of user exhaustion,
It is exhausting.
because you are constantly forced to adapt your communication style on the fly. You're guessing how to translate your complex human problem into machine-readable input. The technology is literally creating entirely different realities for the user, all masked by the exact same familiar interface.
So if the experience is this wildly inconsistent, and I have to constantly guess how to talk to it, what happens when it gives me one of those plausible, totally wrong answers, and I actually act on it?
Well, that's the big question.
This is what completely reframed how I view automated support. Who is actually on the hook when the interaction fails?
And this brings us to what I think is Yoshida's most crucial observation: the location of responsibility. Think about it. The AI is the entity providing the answers and making decisions about what information to show you.
Right.
But it carries absolutely zero responsibility for those answers.
Because it's just lines of code. I mean,
Yeah.
it can't be fired, you can't apologize, it doesn't feel consequences.
Exactly. Imagine you ask a healthcare provider's AI chatbot if a specific complex medical procedure is covered by your insurance.
Okay, high stakes.
Very high stakes. And the AI, acting as a probabilistic engine, just trying to generate a plausible sounding response, confidently hallucinates and says, yes, this is fully covered.
Oh, no.
So you go ahead and get the procedure, and a month later, you get a $10,000 bill in the mail.
Wow. And the AI cannot be sued. The AI doesn't pay the bill.
Nope. So who takes the fall? Does the human claims adjuster have to honor the AI's hallucination, or do you, the user, take the blame for trusting the machine in the first place?
That is such a messy gray area.
It is. The underlying structure dictates that ultimate responsibility always falls back on a human. But because the AI is now the absolute premise-like, it is the mandatory first line of defense. The boundary between the machine's primary response and the human's ultimate responsibility becomes incredibly ambiguous.
That completely shatters the traditional chain of accountability.
It really does.
I mean, think about how we used to get help. Assistance used to be an option. You would try to figure something out yourself, maybe read a manual or look at a website.
Right. You'd try on your own first.
And if you couldn't do it, you sought out assistance. You asked for help. But now, assistance is a barrier. You are forced to interact with an automated assistant just to get to the point where you can explain your problem to the company.
And Yoshida calls this out as a fundamental shift in society. The AI acts as a shield for the organization. It increases their operational metrics and cuts costs, but it acts as a barrier for the user.
So when an interaction fails, the responsibility is just sort of floating there?
Exactly. The organization points to the AI's complex algorithm, kind of shrugging it off, but the user is left holding the bag of frustration. You are forced to start all over again, often blaming yourself for not typing the exact magic words the AI needed to hear.
We celebrate AI in all these press releases, talking about how it's taking over frontline work and solving 80% of customer queries instantly.
The metrics always look great on paper.
Right, but the heavy burden of responsibility hasn't been magically erased by the algorithm. It has just been pushed out of the user's sight. The discomfort Yoshida charts is that sudden realization that you are navigating a high-stakes maze without any safety net at all.
So if we try to synthesize Yoshida's core thesis here, it points to a massive trade-off that society is quietly accepting right now.
And what's the trade-off?
Well, the integration of AI into everyday support undeniably increases speed and consistency. Handle times go down. You get an answer immediately, every single time you ask a question.
But the vital, invisible aspects of interaction are completely stripped away.
Ex
Emotional reception just vanishes.
Yeah.
True contextual understanding, that psychological relief of handing your problem over to someone who actually gets it, that is gone.
Completely gone.
And clear accountability becomes this blurred, ambiguous mess. We are definitely gaining efficiency, but we are losing a lot of clarity.
And the value of Yoshida's observation isn't in offering some silver bullet solution to these problems.
No, not at all.
It is in appreciating the white space of these questions. We are in a profound transition phase right now, where the tools are evolving much faster than our cultural norms or our legal frameworks can adapt to them.
So remember the mission from the top of this deep dive. I am speaking directly to you, the listener, right now. We are deliberately leaving these thoughts unfinished.
Sitting with that discomfort.
Yes, Sitting with that weird, slightly off feeling you get when the chatbot replies instantly with an answer that makes zero sense for your life. Sitting with it is part of understanding the transition. It's noticing the water we are swimming in.
We really have to observe how the human experience is changing, just one tiny automated interaction at a time, without rushing to decide if it's utopian or dystopian.
Which leaves me with the final, lingering thought for you to chew on today. Something to really mull over the next time that little chat window inevitably pops up on your screen.
Oh, this is a good one.
If AI flawlessly handles the literal words, but leaves the burden of true understanding and responsibility entirely to humans, are we actually training AI to act more human? Or are we slowly training ourselves to communicate like machines just to make sure the first line of defense actually understands us?